when you have this mentality versus this one, you get different results. So like, I always say that the lead is only as good as the agent.
Me personally, the more sales I get, the more it makes me want to keep going. So if I'm at two before two,
Are you at 2 today?
I'm at 3.
Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Playbook Podcast, joined by Atlanta's finest.
Now we're at the point where we're gonna be fucking millionaires, bro. Let's fucking go. Come on, let's go.
What I will tell you is, I wish people knew how good it is on the other side of the storm.
There's no work-life balance, really. When you get to a certain level,
No, like this is one of the best of the best.
I don't half step cause I know the full truth. The devil cooking, he don't know that I could cook too. When life
We've got a heavy hitter coming off a 20K week here in the Playbook headquarters. Thank you for joining us for another Playbook podcast. How are we feeling this week, Al?
Feeling great.
Big breakthrough this week, huh?
Yes, sir.
So we just wrapped up our 15K club lunch that we do every single week. This was your first time making it out, right?
Yeah, it was.
How's it feel?
Feel like a winner.
Yeah. I remember, man, when we first started doing that, like, everybody wanted to write. At the time, it was 10K.
Yeah.
Now it's 15K, because if we have a 10K club lunch in the office, I'll probably need another job, you know?
Everybody's going.
Yeah. But, like, everybody was hitting 10K, and that just shows you now, like, now we have a new standard. We're hitting new limits. What was it that you would say that, you know, was just, finally you're breaking through? What was it this week?
I guess I just realized, you know, I just didn't want to be average anymore. You know, I seen everybody around was doing 10K. I wanted to be above that. You know, I wanted to hold myself at a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been in here for longer than a lot of people, and I felt like I was at the same level when I really shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
So I just said I'm gonna put my head down. I'm gonna work this week, and I'm gonna double my week, and that's what I did.
And that's the best part about this business. You double the work, you get double the results.
Exactly.
Simple as that. Now, I love the background, man, because I know you recently dropped out of school, right?
Yeah.
How long were you in college for?
1 semester.
Did you finish the semester?
Yeah, I finished the semester.
Okay, at least you finished the 1 semester. What was mindset behind that, man? Because, like, I was in the same position as you. I was in law school, and I was like, semester didn't even finish, I'm out, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, I was only fresh into it right out of high school, went straight to college like anybody else would, you know, just to please my mom, make her happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then when this opportunity presented itself, you know, it's too good of an opportunity to pass up.
Yeah.
You know, my brother came in and he told me, like, yo, this is real. So I was like, I'm all in. So I left school, and then I put all my effort into this, and alhamdulillah, it's working out.
And what were you studying for? What were you hoping to do when you were in school?
Business, marketing I was going into.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And where did that come from? Like, did you always want to be in business when you were growing up? Or?
Exactly. Yeah, I always knew that the only way to make real money in this world was to be your own business owner. And once, again, this opportunity presented itself, you know, you may say, like, you're working for a team, but at the same time, you have your own business.
Yeah,
It's
control.
Exactly, like a fast food chain, right? There's the higher-ups, and then you can open your own chain, your own business. Yeah. And I seen that opportunity, and I put all
Made
my...
sense.
Exactly.
Now, that business mindset, where did that come from? That come from dad, or where did that come from?
So I have obviously lived with my dad and my older brother as well. You know, I always seen them. They wanted to do the best for themselves. You know, we didn't want to be average. You know, we didn't want to be working for anybody. And I guess that's where that business mentality came from.
Now, I know your dad is in the business world, right?
Yeah.
And you guys had a pizzeria, right? Family
Pizzeria,
business?
yep.
So we have the same background. Me and your
Yeah.
dad, I came from the restaurant business. I
Yeah.
was in a pizzeria previously. How was that, like, growing up in that?
Man.
Because I always feared that my kids would. So,
Yeah.
like, when I saw you guys and how bad you were talked about, I was like, oh, man, like,
Yeah.
I would rather burn the business down than have my kids go into that, you know?
Yeah, you know, started working 13 years old, you know, standing on my feet for 10 to 12 hours a day. And the weather, it's hot outside, it's hotter in the
imagine
store.
in the kitchen. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
man.
the weather, it would get bad. It would get up to, you know, like 100 degrees at least. Like, and when it was cold, it was really cold.
Yeah.
So, like, it would be whatever it is
The
outside,
pizza
it's 10 times
ovens
worse
would help,
inside.
though, if you were next to it. on
Yeah,
the
but you'd
pizza.
have to be huddled
Yeah,
up on
yeah.
the pizza. man, it wasn't something that I seen myself doing for a while.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to do something else.
So you said 13 years old, you grew up in the restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, and when I was in the restaurant industry, it's like I hated it so much because of like too many outlying factors, right? You got your
Yeah.
employees, you've got the inventory, you got the economy. It's not your business.
No.
You don't own it. The business owns you. And I was like, my kids were young at the time. You know, my oldest is only 7.
Yeah.
But when I got out, he was like 5, and I was like, there's no way I let my kids grow into this.
Yeah, exactly.
What did it feel like finally getting out, you know, and leaving that family business behind?
And I felt free. That's the best way to put it. You know, of course, my dad is still there. Whenever he needs me, I'll be there.
Yeah.
But you know, just to have this type of freedom, you know, I haven't went on vacation in years, but and having this opportunity to the point where I can do so and still be working and making money, is just unreal.
And that's the thing, like when I got out of the restaurant industry, just like you said, it just feels like I'm out of something now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when someone asked me, they're like, how does it feel to be out of the restaurant industry after 4 years? I was like, it feels like I just got out of jail, you know? Like that's legit how it felt.
Yeah.
Do you still get called in time to time, or does that bother you at all?
Not really. He sees, like, he understands, like, I'm thankful for him, you know.
Yeah.
He understands that I have my own thing, and so I'm always his last resort. Like, he'll do it himself before he asks me to do so.
Yeah, it's like a father's mentality. He'd
Exactly.
rather do it instead of call you guys in, bother you while you're
Yeah.
working. Now, the transition into, you know, virtual sales with no telesales experience, how was that the first month or 2 or 3 while in training? What did that go like?
So, man, I came into the business, you know, thinking I could do the bare minimum. You know, these guys are working, you know, 40 hours a week and making however many dollars. I was thinking I could work half of that and make half of the money.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really the truth, you know. I came in thinking that this is easy. I'll just do what I need to and I'll make my money. That's not the case. You have to come in and you have to work.
Mm-hmm.
You actually have to put in the hours, put in the activity, and the results will come.
And you quickly realize the first month or 2, like, you didn't come off to the best start.
Yeah.
You know, but you're about to do some damage now with the pace you're pacing at now. But
Yep.
like, you saw, like, it's eat what you kill here. You know, like
Exactly.
it's not just to show up and you get what you want. So like, what did the first 30 days look like, and then after on, what was the biggest lesson you learned?
Man, the first 30 days, you know, I was dialing. Well, telling myself I was dialing. You know, once I started tracking my activity and seeing how many dials I was actually putting in.
Using the activity tracker?
Exactly. That was big for me.
That thing's gold, man.
Yeah, it was big for me. Like I said, you know, once I started actually tracking my dials, and I'm like thinking, like, yo, I'm burnt today.
Yeah.
And then by the time it was like 2 o'clock, I would only have like 40 leads hit.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
You need at least 150. You know.
That's absolute. 40 is nothing. 150 is like that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wasn't like working as much as I thought I was, and once that clicked for me, I was like, okay, now I know what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started putting in more work, and then the results followed.
Which is big, man, because like you know the nickname you took, right? You know who goes by that, right?
The biggest.
That's the #1 producer on our team last year. Sold over $600,000. So if you're gonna take that nickname, you have a big shoes to walk in. You know.
Exactly.
So he had a similar start to that, you know, but it wasn't due to lack of applying himself or anything. It's just some people take a lot longer to learn than others.
Yeah.
Like Al sold 6 policies his first month. People do that their first week, 2 weeks, and then he sold 600,000 his first year. So it just shows you, you know, like when people are struggling early on, like I hate to see it because like it's not a matter of if it's gonna work out, just when is it gonna click, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And you kind of saw that and you went through it. Now fast forward 3 months, you know, you're pacing average 10K, just came off a big week. What would you say that is the biggest thing that stood out to you while you were in training, whether it was anything from the systems or somebody told you something?
So I hear a lot, you know, it's the leads, it's the wall, it's not the leads.
Yeah.
It was me.
Mm-hmm.
And once I came to the realization that it was me and I wasn't giving myself excuses anymore, I feel that's what clicked, you know. No more excuses. I'm gonna put my head down. What's different between I came in with Omar, you know,
Yeah.
one of the top guys here. I introduced him to the business. And we came in at the same time, and he's doing the numbers that he was.
Number 2 in the company this month.
Number 2 in the company, and I'm doing what I was doing. And I was like, this is making no sense. Why is he doing that? Why am I doing this? So once that, I realized, what am I doing? I just locked in, put my head down, and I started working. And now I'm catching up.
Yeah, and just kind of like what you said, agents always say it's the leads. And for me, it's like I know both sides of the business. I'm like, dude, trust me. Like, we have 200 people doing this now that are active writers and 350 active total people on the team that just got contracted. Like, the way I used to look at it is if, 80 people are doing it and getting the results and these 10 or 15 aren't, who would you listen to, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, the biggest part about the business is accountability.
100%.
You saw, you basically gave the example of the guy that came into the business the same time as you. You know, he did the damage that he did. You weren't getting the results. But when you have this mentality versus this one, you get different results. So, I always say that the lead is only as good as the agent because there's only 3 reasons people I tend to see they don't get the results. It's not enough leads or not enough activity or not enough confidence. Would you agree with that?
100%.
And you saw kind of even the confidence. How important was that confidence for you early on in training?
Man, that was big. You know, fresh off or my last week on the vault, I just started buying leads, letting them sit for a little. It was my last week on the vault, and I was like, I'm not making any excuses for myself. And that was my first 10K week. I did 12K on the vault. And once, that gave me the confidence. If I'm doing 12K on the vault, I should be doing...
Dude, you could do 20K when you buy your leads.
Exactly. Yeah. See, the only difference is maybe, talking and getting people on the phone.
Yeah.
So I knew if I was doing 12K on the vault, I should be doing 20 on leads, on fresher leads.
And then walk us through that. How big was that for you not having to buy leads as soon as you came into the business?
It's no expenses. There was very little risk.
Yeah.
So I was like, why not? I was like we spoke about earlier, my dad has the pizza, and I asked him, I was like, can I take just a little bit of time to get myself into this business here and see how it is? And there's little to no expenses, so there's no really risk.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's the worst that's gonna happen?
Exactly, man. And being able for us to provide that tool to new agents in training has been huge because the biggest reason I saw that agents don't succeed in the business is because when you're on the phone, it's not a lead issue, it's a skill set issue.
100%.
Imagine spending $5K your first month and then not getting the result.
Yeah.
There's a 90% fail-out ratio because of that.
100%. Yeah.
So being able to provide that resource in our agency is huge, So going through that repetition, right? You heard all of those no's so many times. How important is it to go through that phase of the business?
Man, if you don't go through it sooner, you're gonna go through it later. Yeah. And then I'd rather get it out the way, when I'm newer. Build that mentality. I'm ready for the no's.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I want you to tell me no, so I could.
You're prepared for it at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's it's like the way I look at the objections. It's like a boxing ring. You gotta float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Yep. You have to know when to move with them, when to shift. All of that matters, and that's why you have to get really good at those objections. Yeah. Were you afraid of those objections at all early on, or
in the beginning? 100%.
Yeah. We all were. I was too.
I was hoping.
Yeah.
I was hoping they were all gonna be lay downs, but that was not the case.
Yeah. And so many people confuse that. One guy was like, "Dude, I just bought 20 closes, and they're not. I couldn't close them." I'm like, "What do you mean you bought 20 closes?" He's like, "I bought 20 leads." I was like, "Bro, you have to have the skill set to close them."
Yeah, 100%.
It's a person that's interested. You have to know how to talk to them and close them. Yeah. How big has that been, learning the psychology of the sale and kind of going through our training and knowing how to speak to those people to close them over the phone like you are?
It's the difference. It's night and day. Anybody can get on the phone and read a script to them.
Yeah.
But once you know what you're actually saying and you know the rebuttals and once you know your product as well, once you know what you're selling, it becomes much easier.
Yeah.
You put it in your head, I'm here to help this person.
Yeah.
This person's filled out this request and he needs my help. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help him out. That's the biggest switch, to understand that I'm not here trying to make money off this guy. I'm here to help him.
Yeah, because if you have that mindset where how much am I making, or I'm calculating while I'm on the phone or pitching numbers, you're doomed in the business.
Yeah.
You won't last long because you're not serving with the servant's heart.
Yeah.
why did you not ever get in that mindset? Did someone tell you, or where did that come from?
So I was never a greedy person. You know, I grew up. My dad taught me not to be that way. And, you know, money isn't everything. I just know if I work, the business will work. You know, I'm not gonna be greedy, right? So I'll take what was given to me, and I'll do what I can. And I'm not gonna put the client in a situation where he's gonna charge back on me anyway.
Because you put him in a bad position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll give the client what he needs, not what I want to give him.
And then how important has that been, you know, just putting the clients in the right position? Because we stress that a lot in our agency, that we work for the client to put them in the best position, not for our pockets or the commission.
Exactly. When you put them in a position that they're comfortable in being in, they sell themselves, right? So they're doing half of the work for you, right? You just got to fill out the application. Once you're like trying to sell them on, you know, I'm sure you can afford this, sir, and he doesn't feel comfortable in doing so, you're just making your job a lot harder, right? You let him do half of the part selling himself, and then you take care of the rest.
And then for the viewers that are watching, what would you say are some of the things that you do that allows a client to sell themselves?
You know, you have to ask the right questions. In the beginning, like the first 90 seconds, you ask all the right questions. Whoever asks the most questions wins, like you always tell me. Right, so you ask them, you build their need, right? So you ask them, why were you looking into this in the first place, sir? And then, you know, you ask them, what kind of got you thinking into something like this? And boom, those two questions for me, you know, they always sell themselves. It makes it much easier for me. It's just a matter of getting people on the phone.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Our product sells itself. Like, even if somebody filled something out for whatever, like everybody needs life insurance, all you gotta do is ask them if they have it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's as simple as that. That's why I love selling it so much, because it's a need-based product and it checks all the boxes, and that's what excites me so much about this industry. Is like it's bulletproof, you know. Like it checked all the boxes for me. It's something that people always need. It's something that'll never go away. If the economy gets worse, it gets better for us, because people get like everything is there that you could think of. Now, what are the next steps for you? I know we're halfway through the year. What are the goals looking like?
So for the rest of probably this and the next month, you know, I just want to focus on building myself before I start trying to build the team. If I'm not doing it myself, how am I going to teach a team to do so?
Yeah. And we're big on that here.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to work on my craft before I'm able to, you know, start trying to tell people what to do and tell people how to do it. So again, like, you know, trying to get myself right before I try to get others right.
And then are we going to try to make a Hall of Fame run this year? What do you think?
100%.
400K?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a must, man. Like, I had to do it last year. Like, there's no way you can't make a Hall of Fame run. Like, you need a red jacket. Everybody needs a red jacket. Now, I know you said the biggest switch for you was the activity you were putting in now, right?
Yeah.
What does the daily schedule look like for you?
So, you know, coming 10 o'clock, you know, some people like to come in a little bit earlier, but personally, I think 10 o'clock is like the time I'm up and I'm ready. If I come in at 9 o'clock, you know, I'm checking my emails, things like that. But I start hitting the phones at 10 o'clock, you know, keep dialing throughout the day. Depends on if it's a good or bad day, how many sales I have, if I'm happy with myself. You know, me personally, the more sales I get, the more it makes me want to keep going. So if I'm at 2 before 2.
Are you at 2 today?
I'm at 3.
Let's go.
Yes, sir. And it just fuels me to keep going, right? So I'm at 3 right now, so that makes me want to get out this podcast room and get back on the phone. So, you know, I stay working. If it's a bad day, I won't leave until I get one. I'll stay here till midnight if I have to.
That standard is so important, man. Like in the beginning, like it was 1 before lunch, or you don't eat lunch. It was 2 before 2, or 1, or you don't get off the phone. Like we used to dial to 10, 11. And then if you didn't close on the numbers, you'd do 20 push-ups. But developing that standard, you see it now, what it's doing now hundreds of agents later, how alive that standard is. But that standard is so important when it comes to sales. What a difference maker it is, right?
100%. You know, it was the biggest thing for me.
Like the 2 before 2 p.m. rule, like how much does that drive you every day?
You have no idea.
You know what it does, right?
Yeah.
Like if you get 2 before 2, you're more likely to close 3 on the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you can close 2 early on, there's no reason you shouldn't close 1 from dialing from 2 to 8 or 2 to 7, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just been huge, seeing you grow over time, because I remember the training. I remember the early days, the guys saying he's struggling. and I would kind of like poke my head, make sure you're doing well, because I wanted to see you do well. Now to see you come off this week, hit your first 15K club lunch, man. We're excited to see what you're going to do in the future, and we'll see you on that Hall of Fame stage at ceremony, right?
Yes, you will.
Appreciate you.